My name's Dominic Raab. I'm the author of The Assault on Liberty, and I'm a Tory.
Figures that worked with you that I've spoken to have told me that your behaviour did amount to bullying, that your approach put the fear of God, to quote someone, into members of your staff. You insist you are not a bully, but do you accept that others think you are? And are you confident that you're going to remain in your post in a few months' time?
Well, I've of course engaged with the inquiry and will not comment on it at all.
In terms of the food bank issue, and I've studied the Trussell Trust data, what they tend to find is the typical user of food bank is not someone that's languishing in poverty, it's someone who has a cash flow problem episodically. No, it's true. Well, that is what the Trussell Trust data says.
It's not what they say, Dominic.
It is.
I go to food banks all the time.
Sorry,
Trussell
Victoria, can I finish the point?
Outraged by you saying
no,
that.
they wouldn't.
Outraged.
And what we've done, because a lot of people on low and middle incomes are feeling the pinch, is we've taken 4 million of the lowest paid out of income tax altogether. The average basic rate taxpayer keeps £1,000 each year more than they did in 2010, and we've introduced the national living wage, and we're trying to make sure we've got the economy that creates the jobs and the wages, and make sure people keep more of the money they keep.
Just to clarify, Dominic, you're telling the country here in this programme that the Trussell Trust, who deal with poverty, told you personally that the problem with food banks wasn't people who are on the breadline, but people are having cash flow problems. I'm dying to hear from them when they hear that you've said that.
Could I just ask you, since you had such a critical role as the Brexit Secretary, I presume that in fact you had read the Belfast Agreement. Please don't line up behind the Immigration Minister and tell us that you haven't read the agreement.
I haven't sit down and started at the beginning and gone through it, but of course at various points in the negotiations, when issues have been raised, it has been an important opportunity to delve in to the different aspects very carefully. So
which aspects of so you haven't read the Belfast Agreement in its entirety?
I haven't sat down and gone from, I've used it as a reference tool to make sure that I understood and could satisfy and reassure myself that in relation to the commitments that were made on both sides in relation to the joint report in December, which was the basis of what we were going to do on the backstop, that we're not impinging on anything required by the Belfast Agreement, and also to make sure more broadly, in the positive sense, that what we're doing can promote peace, stability, notwithstanding what I recognise is a difficult set of questions for the people in the communities of Northern Ireland.
So you're confirming that you haven't read the Belfast Agreement, you were the Brexit Secretary, the backstop, the arrangement with Ireland.
I'm answering all your questions to the best of my ability, and I'm doing it honestly. So it's not like a novel. You sit down and say, do you know what, over the holidays this is a cracking read, but it is an absolutely vital constitutional document, and I consulted it at every moment where, either as of my own initiative or whether as a result of advice of officials, an issue was raised to satisfy myself that we would never do anything, not only to undermine the letter, but also the spirit of the Good Friday Agreement, or indeed the political stability that I'm sure in good faith we all want to preserve.
Good. And could you just confirm, for the record, that you did read the provisions in the agreement which referred to a border poll?
I am familiar with those. I don't have a copy of it in front of me if you want to test me on the detail, but I am familiar with those.
Put it another way then, do you think you will be exonerated and remain in post?
I have nothing more to say than I've already said at length.
OK, so you're not sure you're going to be exonerated?
It's an independent inquiry. I'm confident I behave professionally at all times.
OK, so you think you'll be OK?
I'm not going to comment on the outcome of an inquiry, which is by definition independent.
Do you accept, though, that your behaviour in certain instances has not been acceptable?
Look, I'm sure I've made mistakes over 4.5 years, but the question was whether any of this amounted to bullying. And I strongly believe if the threshold for bullying is so lowered that picking people up on bad work, straightening out a negotiation where a breach of a cabinet-set mandate has been taken place, changing teams so we get the very best out of negotiations, so we deliver on victims' parole, human rights reform.
I don't support the Human Rights Act, and I don't believe in economic and social rights. But I am proud to stand shoulder to shoulder at this convention with so many incorrigible lefties, because this attack on our freedoms is bigger than politics, and it threatens all of us.
Asked by the BBC, straight question, she's normally a straight shooting politician, do you like the RMT? She said, I'm going to have to go now, I've got a train to catch. She talks about working people. She talks about working people.
When you look at the policies one by one, whether it's 42 days, ID cards, the incursions on free speech, none have been justified on security grounds. Police haven't needed to hold any terrorist suspects for longer than 14 days in over a year and a half. So why do we need 42 days now? ID cards didn't stop the terrorist attacks in Istanbul or Madrid, so how will they protect us here? And repeatedly we've seen violations, infringements of free speech, the very bedrock of our democracy, on the most trivial of grounds. Sacrificing liberty for security, it's not a trade-off, it's a fraud, and we need to expose it.